So thankful to be with all of you here this morning. The weather down here is just amazing, no? I'm trying not to be smug about it with my family back home, but sometimes that happens. Smugness might be a uniquely human thing. I don't know, do animals ever feel smug? Other than cats, maybe. But what else is a uniquely human thing? You ever thought about that? A lot of people will say, oh, what separates us from the animals is our thumbs. But I actually think there are many things that are uniquely human. Like sometimes we make salads that have no vegetables in them. Do you guys do that down here? It's like a salad that has marshmallows and apples in it, but not a piece of lettuce to be found. Or sports, being devastated when our team loses. You don't see antelopes or giraffes worrying about that. Or sometimes I am seized with the desire to wear a really amazing pair of high heels, even if it is icy or wet outside. That is something pretty uniquely human. Other things that might make us uniquely human could be our dry humor. Any other fans of sarcasm in here? Yes. Again, cats are also sarcastic, but other than cats, I don't think we share that with any other mammals. Our ability to cry is a uniquely human thing. Sometimes you might say our self-awareness is uniquely human. We as humans have a concept of our past, our present, and our future. We don't know for sure if any of the other creatures that God has made shares that awareness, but we do. And there are other things that maybe we do share with animals, but they feel like ours, don't they? Family conflict, that can feel very human. Having bills to pay, kids who end up sounding just like us. I feel a little bit smug when one of my students says something like, "We're in a parking lot." Yes, we are. We are in a parking lot. Let us not forget. Or when we have smell as a memory. That's also something uniquely human. Have you ever smelled a recipe and you say, "It's like my mom is here"? That's such a uniquely human thing. But being human is hard, don't you think? It's not easy to be human. We have this propensity to have a little bit of selfishness sometimes. I have struggled with wanting to be right more than I want to be liked. I love being right. In fact, sometimes when I'm right, I have my family say it louder. Who was right? Mama was right. Sometimes we do things to make each other feel small. Sometimes we're petty. These are some of the shadow sides of being human. We also have this incredible capacity to love. We are able to love children who did not come from us, or children maybe we don't know. Watching all of you give coins to those kiddos was an example of that. We have this ability to give each other grace, to feel joy even when we're in the midst of deep grief. That is also uniquely human. So what feels human to you today? What feels human to you today? Jesus invites us into this question. He has this question on his mind, I think. He's been walking with the disciples for a while now, and the disciples have seen him heal and preach and teach They've been witnessing Jesus show them what it looks like to live a life of faith, a life with heart set on the divine. But they're still not getting it. He's witnessed them argue about who's the greatest and who's going to sit at your right hand in heaven, and they're just not getting it. They're stuck in the humanness of it. And so he starts to talk about what is going to happen. He does a uniquely divine thing. He says that I am going to die. And not only does he say, I'm going to die, I'm going to be hurt. I'm going to be tortured. I'm going to be humiliated. And I'm going to be hung on a cross, which back then there were few ways worse to die than the cross. The image that we love as Christians is one of the most human shapes there is. This cross is such a symbol of torture and sadness and pain. But our God then says, in 3 days, I will rise again. That's a uniquely divine thing. And God is inviting us into that. I don't know about you, but I would not have known what to do with that either. Peter looks at Jesus, and he must be confused. We don't know that for sure, but he takes Jesus aside and starts to rebuke him. I wonder if it was hard for Peter to hear these things that Jesus was saying. There's no way that's going to happen, Jesus. There's no way. What are you talking about? This is such a crazy thing that you're saying. The torture, the being beaten up, like that's all, they've probably seen that happen before. But this rising from the dead? What are you talking about? There's no way. We don't know for sure that Jesus was angry here. It doesn't say that in the text. But don't you wonder? He says, "Get behind me, Satan." He needed Peter to understand this is something you need to take on and do. This is the message that I am leaving with you, and now it's your job to carry it to the ends of the earth. Because of God's love, we are no longer confined by our humanness. We're able to set our hearts on what is divine, to love each other, to give grace, to share joy, to impart hope. That's our job. That's divine. But Peter's still stuck in the humanness of it. Understandably so. I empathize with Peter. But I imagine Jesus gets angry because this is so important. He doesn't want them to get this wrong. And unfortunately, we Christians do. We're human. The humanness is still in us. But Jesus is saying we always have within us this capacity to set our hearts on what is divine. And what's amazing about that is when we open our hearts up to what is divine in our lives, it will be bigger, more expansive, more inviting, more inclusive, more wondrous and wild and beautiful than we can imagine right now. But setting our hearts on what is divine takes an act of stillness. It takes us stepping back from our knee-jerk reaction, finding that stillness, and then becoming curious. I believe curiosity is one of the quickest ways to get to the divine. What if instead of reacting with the humanness that we love to react with, what if in the midst of conflict we instead acted with curiosity? What if in the midst of stress or overwhelming feelings we stepped back and were still and said, what is divine here? What is God up to here? How is God working here? It won't always be an instant aha moment because it's a practice. It's something we need to practice. Peter didn't get it right. He's going to get it much more wrong as we go in these gospel stories over the next few weeks, as we hear him deny Jesus as he's being hung on the cross. But this is also built into who we are. Even though we have all this human stuff, our God has said, the ultimate purpose I have for humankind is for us to lean into that divinity, not to keep forcing the divine into smaller spaces, but to bring our humanity into the expansive wonder of divinity. One of my favorite analogies for this, and I didn't bring one down here because I didn't trust myself on the stairs, but is a Sunday school chair. You know, the little Sunday school chairs? To use our humanness, to set our hearts on what is human, is like trying to fit the divine into a Sunday school chair. It doesn't quite fit. And we do that to ourselves too. We try to fit our expansive, incredible hearts into that little tiny space as well. But God is saying, no, that's not my purpose for you. My purpose for you is to set your heart, that thing that holds your treasure, where your heart is, your treasure where your treasure is, your heart shall be. My purpose for you is to set your treasure on what is divine in your life. To ask yourself, God, where can you show me your perspective? What are your thoughts on this? And that is how we set our hearts on what is divine. Our God can handle our humanness. God chose to wade into our humanity, into the mess and the joy and the beauty and the brokenness. Our God chose to do that. And now we have a choice also. We can lean into the divine in our lives, to what is expansive, to what is inclusive, to what is filled with grace, mercy, hope, and joy. That's not putting on rose-colored glasses, because it's not easy. The knee-jerk reaction will always be there to fight back, or to be petty, or to want to be right, or to want to be selfish. That's always going to be there. But we get to choose what we do with this wondrous life we've been given. We can choose to be still for a moment and be curious about how God will work through whatever situation we find ourselves in. Because God does. Because God is. Because when we set our hearts on what is divine, we will find that there is no situation that God cannot bring wonder and redemption and new life into. That's the kind of God we worship. That's the God that brings us here today. And that is the God that went to the cross for us, transforming the most human symbol possible of torture and fear and death into one of resurrection and expansive love and new life. And that is what is offered to us this day. Let us choose to set our hearts on what is divine. Amen.